All right, folks. Good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans on a great Friday night here. Joining you folks here this evening for a Friday edition of the WNBA 365 Network here, 24/7, 365 comprehensive home for the WNBA and the rest of the women's basketball world. Sorry for the brief delay, folks. Just working a few bugs out for topics for the night show and just a few other things included. But with that, though, folks, welcome in, though, to this evening's edition of the WNBA 365 Network for Friday night, May 26, 2017. Join the night three-man game this evening. Joining us tonight, Crystal Thomas up in Los Angeles, and our good buddy Marquez Anderson joining us from Project Spurs and StarsHoops.net joining us this evening, along with Cal McClure joining you folks here from the Calamax Sports Studios in San Diego. Crystal and Marquez, good to see you guys. How's it going on this great Friday night?
Hello.
All's well, ends well. With that, folks, of course, Facebook, Twitter, live chat box, as usual, open for you folks. .com/WNBA365 on Twitter, at WNBA365, at Calamac3, at Pup1010, or at OMarquez, hashtag WNBA365, or find the live chat box in the right part of your screen. Send in your questions, comments, concerns, and we'll read those when we get a chance during the course of our program this evening. With that, folks, also one quick program alert for you folks. We will, of course, in observance of Memorial Day, be off air on Monday, and we will rejoin you folks back here pending anything popping up on the schedules back here on Tuesday night. With that, guys, 3 games on the Friday WNBA menu of games, starting off with the Lynx and Sun completing the back half of a home-and-home set between the two teams. The Lynx beat the Sun 80-60 to improve their record to still an unbeaten, now 5-0 on the season. Sylvia Fowles continues to dominate teams in the paint. 20-point game for Big Sil. Rebecca Brunson and Renee Montgomery combined for 11 points each. Anita Kaiser team high 12 points for the Sun in their 4th straight loss to open the season. Marquez, you and I were talking about this before the show started, and we talked about that the Lynx are probably going to go on what we've seen in the past, some type of long sustained run for a little bit, at least unbeaten, for an unbeaten streak. And I think that so far this season, Sylvia Fowles has really put her name back on the WNBA map this season, where it's only been a Maya Moore-led team or a Simone Augustus-led team. And now for at least through the 5 games, it seems like to me it's become a Sylvia Fowles team. And this is what Katie and I talked about the past couple times on the show was, how that team identity has kind of shifted a little bit towards Fowles, and she has played a phenomenal stretch of the season already, through 5 games for Minnesota. Marquez, any thoughts you want to pass on about how dominant this Minnesota team has been? I mean, they've grinded out some wins already in the season. They've had their share of blowouts, but really, I think more so, can you talk about or speak about how well Sylvia Fowles has played so far through 5 games? I think it's been a really dominating force and great thing to watch so far for Minnesota.
Yeah, well, starting with the game itself, I, for one, was expecting Connecticut to play it a little bit closer. They typically play Minnesota really well, especially in their last game, because of their size, length, and athleticism and ability to run out and push the pace. So this being a blowout kind of surprised me a little bit, but only because of that reason. But in terms of Sylvia Fowles, she's just been fantastic. And like you guys said, the Minnesota offense has really changed to where the offense is running through her. She's making the plays, she's capitalizing. So when she's that hot, you just got to keep feeding the hot hand. And when she gets the deep position like she normally always does, all that's left for her to do is finish, and she's doing it at an extremely high and efficient rate right now. So I think that just goes to show how Minnesota has so many pieces to where it doesn't really matter who it is, because every night someone can go for 25, and it just so happens that it's Fowles right now.
Crystal, Marquez just brought it up, though. I mean, any player on this Minnesota team, they're so loaded with artillery that any one of them can just explode and go off for a 20-point game, as mentioned. And Crystal, we had touched base on either on Wednesday or even last week about how we've seen this Minnesota offense somewhat change their identity, and they have gone inside the sill. She's made the jumpers of those, getting those rebound putback shots. I think, though, I agree with Marquez, though, that I was also expecting somewhat of a close game, but Minnesota was my pick for the victory. But, Crystal, I think, though, that Connecticut was probably, for a young team to say that they have been, Crystal just topped up. But I think, though, Marquez, just to kind of, bank on what we had just, talked about with Minnesota, especially, or Connecticut at least, was, you probably would have expected, such a young team to have been able to keep up the pace or what have you. And maybe for a young team, I guess, facing the second, a team that they've given problems, that tonight was maybe a night where they were probably just, probably taxed, that they've given, pretty much that they played their energy, maybe used a lot of their energy, I guess, in that Tuesday game. And then they kept that game super close for the most part. And then when all else fails, the bigger and better team normally, and as the case was tonight with Minnesota winning that game here this evening, I guess, Marquez, for Connecticut at least, in regards to at least for the Sun, I think tonight's a game that is a bit of a head scratcher because the team high was 12 points in regards to Lynetta Kaiser having 12 points, and really not a whole lot of other players really shook to help carry the burden for the Sun in this game. Marquez, was that probably one dooming factor in regards to how Minnesota really was able to exploit the young team and, of course, win the game pretty handily again? Was that one player really, of course, showed up for the Sun, and that was Lynetta Kaiser this evening?
Yeah, it could be. I think sometimes with young teams, you really never know what you're going to get. Some nights you can get a really competitive team, and other nights things can just completely not go their way at all. And I think tonight was just the case. In terms of moving forward, they could probably use this game just as a throwaway game, especially since they played Minnesota so close before. They know that they can compete with Minnesota. So they really shouldn't take anything completely too negative away from this game, except for the fact that maybe they can just say, hey, this really wasn't our night. Let's just move forward, take this, and just go with it.
Marquez, we'll move on now to a game from yesterday. Again, it was the lone game, and again, we couldn't be here to recap that game, but the Wings and Stars hooked up for the first time this season of the Lone Star State Shootout. That's what I'm going to be calling it right now, Lone Star Shootout. Of course, Marquez, pretty big publicity, of course, for finally being the first, the rookie debut, finally, of #1 draft pick, and Washington standout Kelsey Plum, of course, coming off the bench yesterday to make her debut. Marquez, we were really talking more about this game before the show started the night. Marquez, what, so far, obviously, I know that we had talked about this. I think people have written about this, and you've probably written about this, about it being, a very big transition year for the Stars, from top to bottom. New GM, new head coach in place, new faces in there, and really trying to, put the puzzle pieces in alignment. Marquez, at least through the first 4 games you've seen the Stars play, they've hung in there in many games. Of course, maybe you've had a couple one-sided affairs so far, but Marquez, how would you probably assess or grade how San Antonio has really played so far through 4 games? Because obviously a 4-game sample size isn't a whole lot, and especially when you're talking about 4 losses too, that's not a big sample size. But what are your thoughts about how the Stars have played so far this season?
Well, I can't really give a full assessment, only because that yesterday's game was the first time that the entire team was there together, healthy, playing. But in terms of what they've been able to do without them being at full strength, it's really impressive considering how they've been able to stay in games, fight and compete and battle the way they have. Of course, with so many new parts moving in and out, it's going to be a lot of bumps, and you saw that yesterday, because I think that game was really winnable, especially down the stretch. But in terms of what a lot of people wanted to see in terms of Kelsey Plum and Mariah Jefferson and Kayla McBride playing together, that just didn't really happen or go as anticipated. A lot of people anticipated and probably hoped to see them playing all 3 together at the same time, and that just didn't happen. Every time Mariah and Kayla would come in, Kelsey would check out, and vice versa. So I think maybe it'll be interesting to see if that changes at all this season. But the game itself, like I said, it was pretty winnable. The Stars had a pretty sizable lead going into the end of the game, but you really saw the momentum switch when Skylar Diggins-Smith had those consecutive and ones to kind of bring Dallas in to give them the confidence they needed in the later stages of the game.
Marquez, I think you and our great pal Steve Anderson might as well change the name from Project Spurs to Project Stars, because obviously, Marquez, the Stars will be a project or a work in progress, at least for the next couple seasons. But again, MA, there is I still think there's some very good talent, obviously, between Plum and the other young studs that are going to be on this team so far. I think, Marquez, the biggest thing, though, a lot of people want to know, though, is about your thoughts about the job Vicki Johnson has done so far. Again, I know it's a lot to handle, of course, first-time head coach. Of course, she's been there for, so long as a, of course, being a assistant coach. But, Marquez, at least through the 4-game sample size, what have you liked or disliked maybe about DJ and her coaching style so far, at least for Toronto?
I can say that I wasn't really particularly too fond of the rotations and the sub patterns, especially against Dallas. I think every time we would get some momentum, it seems like that player would get taken out. For example, Mariah Jefferson made an impressive play, then she got a steal, laid it up, and as soon as that happened, she got taken out. Kayla Alexander hit 2 consecutive baskets over Evelyn Akator. She gets taken out. And really, you kill momentum that way. And I think part of that is because she's trying to find what works in the rotations that can really continue pushing the way she wants. But at the same time, at some point, when you have the hot hands, you can't go away from that because that just kills all the momentum that you worked for.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Crystal, we'll try this again. We'll try and get your take again on the Lynx and Sun game from today. Marquez wanted to touch base on the Wings and Stars game from yesterday. And someone give his thoughts about what the Stars have done so far that he's liked or maybe that they can improve on. Again, Crystal, in regards to the Lynx and Sun game, again, Minnesota wins 82-68 pretty handily over the Sun after we saw a great game between these two teams to start off the home-and-home series a couple days ago. Crystal, any thoughts to pass along about the Lynx and Sun? We just kind of did right here in regards to, obviously, Connecticut sum up being the Lynx kryptonite the past couple seasons, but obviously a game, though, that the Sun probably want to have back in regards to, again, 12 points is their team high for scoring from Kaiser, and again, not a lot of production other than that. And, of course, Sylvia Fowles, 20 points again, and really putting herself back on the WNBA map so far. Crystal, final takeaway from the Lynx and Sun from Unkinsville this evening.
I just want to apologize first for my technical issues.
No problem.
Second, I think that Connecticut just needs a lot of help. They're still a young team. They're not. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're good. Yeah, you're good.
Would say seasoned. When you have Kaiser's the only one really doing anything for your team, that says a lot. I just don't think they're not. This isn't the same Suns team from last year, obviously, but last year we noticed they started off slow and they ended up picking it up. So maybe they'll do the same thing.
So again, folks, Lynx over the Sun today, 82-68, a final score from Mohegan Sun Arena in Unkinsville. See team next game, guys. The Sky and Mystics also wrapped up a home-and-home set tonight from our nation's capital.
Oh, goodness.
Much of the same from a couple days ago. The Mystics clobbered the Sky. Pretty closer affair, though, tonight, 80-79, Mystics over the Sky. But at one point, guys, had built a pretty sustainable lead in the first half. Tamara Young led the way for the Sky, 16 points. EDD, 20 points in her first home game versus Chicago. And the Mystics had 5 different players registered double figures in tonight's game. Crystal, this is somewhat of that more of the same from what we had talked about on Wednesday. Again, these teams played the first half of the home-and-home on Wednesday morning back over in Rosemont. Crystal, EDD obviously building blocks here, building off of the first game back in Chicago, and again, gets her old team in the backside once more, but also the Mystics have 5 different players scoring in double figures, and again, also Tamara Young leading the way for Chicago, 16 points. Crystal, any final takeaway from the Mystics and Sky? Obviously, of course, the Mystics, again, having 5 players in double figures, and against Chicago, scuffling out of the gate once more. What do you got?
Well, me and Marquez was talking about this earlier the day before. He knows my heart with the Mystics and where I stand. Specifically with one player who I won't name for certain reasons, but I was kind of stressed watching that game. I wasn't really going for anybody. I was just looking at the game, and Chicago was stressing me out. They just weren't playing defense. Their offense was bad. I didn't realize how bad of a team offensively Chicago was until watching them play against Washington twice. They can't really score very well. They can't get the ball in the basket. It was a mess. In words of Marquez, it was a mess.
I use that a lot.
Crystal, Marquez, I really think though that you're kind of seeing the side effects of not just EDD but even maybe Fowles' departure. Of course, as Crystal and I had touched base on even before the first game, we had talked about how the game was really somewhat blown out of proportion by the Chicago Tribune and all these other articles that were in newspaper in the local area about all these questions being asked about EDD. returning and, pretty much, really taking the Sky players off to the point where they were walking out of interviews. And I think, though, Marquez, that, that, again, this is, this is Chicago's life post Deladon now. And again, as Crystal said, I mean, they have had quite a few problems minus their one victory so far in regards to, either scoring distribution or players stepping up in big situations or what have you. Marquez, at least for Chicago's psyche, at least, one win so far through maybe 4 or 5 games, and obviously trying to see what players really fit the mold. Marquez, where is probably the state of panic maybe, or maybe even state of frustration right now for Chicago in your mind as you think about their record so far through at least the first, 5 sample size of games?
I honestly would say is really to be expected, especially with the way they have been handling their roster, whether it's acquiring a lot of big post players or cutting first round picks after a game. So I really just think it's to be expected. I mean, their roster has been in flux. It's just like, what are you going to do? So really, I think if I was a Sky fan, I wouldn't be frustrated. I'd just be like, well, hey, the 2018 draft is coming. If our record is bad enough, we'll get a high pick, and that can be something that can be actually utilized correctly. If we utilize it correctly, that can be something that we can use as a cornerstone for our franchise for a very long time. So, I mean, I wouldn't be frustrated. I would just use this year as something that I obviously knew was going to be a rebuilding phase, and I just go with it, as hard as that is probably going to be for their fans.
Marquez, let me stay with you real quick. Again, now you brought about we'll look ahead to 2018. But Marquez, do you believe though that the Sky's 2-year combined record is going to be good enough to give them at least give them a shot at a top 4 pick with the new rule in place though about combining the team's previous 2-year records?
Really depends on what these other teams are going to do. I know for one, Dallas was in the mix. If they continue winning games like people really didn't expect them to, I think that kind of pushes them out of the mix. Washington obviously probably won't really be there again unless something really crazy happens. I think the only 2 teams that I would say right now that are pretty quote-unquote locked in are probably San Antonio and Connecticut. So a lot can change in terms of those 2 other teams. It's really fluid to me, especially with it being so early. But I think it'll be the same core teams in the mix. It just really depends on what happens throughout the course of the season to determine these spots.
Crystal, what do you think? Presumably could that new stipulation of the draft lottery, where again it's the teams that have the worst combined record over combined 2-season record, could that perhaps play a role in where Chicago does land in the draft if in fact the ship continues to sink in Rosemont right now?
I mean, I think it does. I think we're going to see a new team in there this year. Like Marquez is saying, Washington is not going to fall through, unless, they just start going on a crazy slump. I think, I don't see Dallas in there. Well, I mean, it depends on if they keep winning or not, but they're doing pretty well. So, I think you will see San Antonio again, which I know I know Marquez is probably sad about. Then probably Connecticut. I think we're going to see a team change. I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago shimmied their way up in there some kind of way.
Marquez to the Mystics now, and again, they somewhat have been somewhat of a tough book to read so far through at least a sample size of 4 or 5 games. They've been, stellar one night, bad the next night, great one night, and then awful the next night so far. And I think, and Crystal and I touched base on this too a couple nights ago, was, obviously, if you're a Mystics fan, you see all these moves made, and presumably, and I still think giving the franchise really their first couple of true hallmark superstar players in franchise history, that you're probably thinking, okay, well, he'll get off to a great start. We'll at least get in the playoffs somewhere, maybe at least get to the league semifinals, and maybe for the first time in franchise history, reach the WNBA finals. But Marquez, at least with a sample size of games, is this about what you expected for Washington, or are they perhaps somewhat underachieving maybe expectations so far? Are they, where did you probably see them, at least through the sample size of games so far, and what needs to improve for them to somewhat build up what people were talking about during the offseason about how great or how well this team was built together?
Well, I for one never even really, even with all the moves, I never really considered Washington to be a top 2, 3, or even 4 team, only because of the problems that I figure that they probably have along the way in terms of defense. And I think that's what you've seen. I've always maintained that 1 or 2 players, even though it looks really good on paper, isn't always going to change the fortune for a team, albeit they're going to be better than they were last year. But I mean, anyone that really had them top 2 or 3, I just think that was really unrealistic and really, really optimistic. But I think once they get everything figured out and people start gelling and hitting their shots and getting into their own grooves, it'll be a little bit better. But again, at the same time, the moves they made, it really compromised a lot of their depth. They got rid of Dolston, they lost Copper, they lost Hartley, Vaughn, and that really hurts once you look at it, because you're not only are you struggling on one end with your defense, you gave up a lot of people that really could have came in and helped that. So I think once everything comes together for them, they'll be a little bit better. But early on, I feel like this is really to be expected.
Yeah, Crystal, I know that, you and I were there firsthand when LA had played Washington, and we both, of course, came away with our own thoughts about the Mystics, and we shared those a couple of days ago. But again, Crystal, I think, just to bank off of that same question, at least, do you think that Washington perhaps may be underachieving or falling below perhaps some people's expectations at this point? Again, I know it's 5 games, but of course, where do you think they probably sit in regards to their meeting or perhaps underachieving expectations so far for 2017? Again, through the 5-game sample size so far.
I'm the same way. I agree with Marquez. I mean, yeah, it's only 5 games, and I know things can either get better or worse from here. I'm a big believer of kind of letting things play out, but I agree. I really didn't expect them to be top 1, 2, or 3. I'm still technically not really impressed because even though they beat Chicago twice, they still struggle with them a little bit. Like, they're a team that supposedly wants to run and gun. Well, if you can stop their transition, they really don't do well like that. I mean, especially for them defensively. They're not a very defensively gifted team. They probably have about like 2 good defensive players, and the rest are kind of, if you get them in the right position, they'll be okay. But I don't know. I'm not impressed. Like, right now they're pretty much just going. They're having ED do everything, and I feel like, I talked about burnout. I feel like eventually it's going to come to a point when she's probably not going to be able to hit any shots, and it's going to be a crucial moment. They're going to need her. But I mean, they're pretty much what I thought they would be right now. I mean, they're pretty much, I don't want to say mediocre because they're a little bit better than mediocre, but they're not. I wouldn't put them and Minnesota in the same category.
Guys,
to piggyback off of that.
Yeah, go ahead.
And but to piggyback off of that, I feel like a lot of people are forgetting that Washington has a lot of new and moving pieces as well. They have a lot of new faces on that roster. Whether it came through free agency or the draft, it's a lot of new moving pieces. So I mean, yeah, like I said, it looked really good on paper to start, but that doesn't really mean much once you start playing and you see how those pieces fit together, at least early on. Because I mean, like I said, it is early, like 5 games. A lot of teams are still trying to find what works and get into that rhythm. So obviously they're probably going to get better as things come along, but they're still in a really tough spot considering they're losing Easterman for about a good couple, maybe like what were they saying, a month, 10 games?
Yeah, like a month or something.
Obviously that's not going to help their rhythm, but I mean, they just got to find a way to, like I keep saying, find something that works. And once they figure that out, I think they'll be a little bit better.
But not only that, I know you're trying to. I'm sorry, real quick. Not only that, if they can't get Tolliver going either, I mean, today was like her second best game, and I know it's early, but she's been kind of average. I mean, she's only averaging 9 points on that team. She was like, for the past couple of games, she's been like 2 for 5, 2 for 6, 2 for 7, stuff like that. So if they can get her going consistently, because she's not really consistent, then I think they'll have a better chance. But right now, it is early, but it's still kind of like a pretty much, I think people were hyping what they saw on paper.
No, I agree.
And I still think.
No, I was just going to say that I agree 100% in regards that, there's holes, there's a couple red flags with certain players in regards to, obviously, championships guys aren't won on paper, the old anecdote, old cliche. And I think that once everyone saw that roster on paper, they thought, okay, maybe this team can go somewhat pretty far. But Marquez, what else you got for us?
Well, and I think a lot of it is really she's not getting the same looks, the same quality of looks that she got in LA.
Yeah.
If you watch, a lot of
Yeah.
her looks in LA came off of pick and pops, pick and rolls.
Yeah.
That's not really happening right now in Washington. So I feel like that's probably a product of them not really knowing
How to use
yet
her.
how to use it, like how to find her,
Yeah.
how to find her spots yet. But once they figure that out, then I think it'll be a little bit better.
Yeah, no, 100% agreed with the Mystics on that one. And again, Mystics do get the win, though, more importantly, over Chicago, 88-79. Last game for the night, guys, the Liberty and Storm this evening from Key Arena. Back and forth we went from the Emerald City. The Storm came out on top, 87-81. A victory for the Storm tonight and improving their home record now to 3-0 from Key Arena this evening. Tina Charles, 28 points. Sugar Rogers, 21 points for New York. Brianna Stewart, 20 points. Jewel Lloyd, 16. And Sam Whitcomb had a game to remember, guys, 22 points. And also tied the league record for most made threes in one half of play. She made 6 threes in the first game. The Storm also tied their franchise record by making 14 trays in the ball game tonight. Obviously, Marquez, a great game. Obviously, Chris and I have talked about, the past couple of days. I'm showing that we've had, epic games, close games, great games. And here was another classic example of a great game tonight between two. What I think, are, obviously two teams that will be in the playoff mix come September or October. But Marquez, you can't say enough, though, about the Storm tonight again, tying the franchise record with 14 made threes. And then Sam Whitcomb ties the league record. She made 6 threes in the first half of play. It's really, raining threes in the rainy city of Seattle tonight. What a great game. MA, overall thoughts first to Seattle with the tying the records, of course, tying the league record for most threes in the game, and also, the franchise record. And then, of course, Whitcomb ties the league record for most threes and a half.
I think for me, Seattle, before the season, I had Seattle actually as one of my top 4 seeds at the end of the season. And I think what's scary about them, they have a night like this where they hit 14 threes. And the scary part is Brianna Stewart hasn't even found her offensive groove yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was 3 for 14 this game. So she's not even clicking yet, and they're still finding a way to win games. Jewel Lloyd has been fantastic. So I feel like once everything is firing on all cylinders, that's going to be a scary, dangerous team that you're not going to want to play. And in terms of Whitcomb, she's a rookie, and which that's really her play tonight was really impressive for a rookie. And this is what I want to say. This is the 3rd game where a rookie scored at least 20.
Mm-hmm.
I know Weiss and Davis had theirs, and this makes 3. And I just want to say that's really great coming from people that I don't think people really expected to produce at that high of level yet.
Absolutely.
Especially from Davis and Weiss and now Whitcomb. So I just think it just goes to show that maybe some of the talent in this draft was a little bit better than some people were giving it credit for.
Crystal, I had Seattle, at least as I was running my preseason projections, I had them as MA does somewhere in the top 4 because obviously, like Marquez said, Brianna Stewart Stewie has not really hit her full stride yet, and neither has Sue Bird yet. And this Seattle team is going to be dangerous, much like those 04 and 2010 championship ball clubs that they had up there in Seattle. And again tonight, tying, league records and tying franchise records. That's a great day at the office. Not only that, too, you get the victory on top of it. Crystal, overall thoughts on Seattle, at least again, tying a few records and more importantly, getting a dub in front of the home faithful in Seattle tonight.
I was actually able to watch a little bit of the game. I went to go eat, but good old league pass kept me in the loop.
Coming up,
I did see Sammy Wickham have a good game. I think Marquez was high on her. He was talking about her when LA played against her, and he was trying to jinx us and was trying to say that LA was going to lose. But I like her, and I agree. There is some talent in this draft that was, I'm not going to say talentless, but it was not as deep as many of us would thought. But there's been some gems, and Alicia Gray and Kayla Davis is definitely one of them. Especially, and I forgot Sanaya Chung as well, the 3rd round pick. She's doing pretty well for them too. So, Seattle they're definitely going to be a scary team. I don't know if I have them in the top 4, but they're definitely going to be a scary team. Like they're going to be a team that if whoever is on the bottom and they have to play Seattle, I think that Seattle is not going to make it easy for them at all. Um, I can't wait to see that second Seattle versus Washington matchup because that's going to be fun again. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think Seattle's going to be a team that eventually people aren't just going to look over on their schedule anymore.
And
Yeah,
like you brought up
absolutely.
Sanaya Chong. You brought up Sanaya Chong. Like that, I just have to like give her a shout out. She is a third round pick, and is she's really playing. She's playing great, and not a lot of people expected that. Especially even though she had her quote unquote breakout senior year this past season at Connecticut, still a lot of people were like, is she getting drafted? Is she not getting drafted? She's got her chance, and she's been great. I know. And at the game yesterday, she played the entire fourth quarter, didn't make any mistakes, hit the shots that came to her. She was just great. So I just had to throw that in, that little tidbit right there, because she's just been. I really think she's been defying the odds that people said that she probably wouldn't make it. So really impressive for her, and glad for her
Crystal,
too.
Crystal, we just talked about, again, Weiss, Chong, Whitcomb right now. Obviously, three names that really, along with Kayla Davis too, of course, who won our inaugural Player of the Week Twitter fan poll. Again, four rookies, Crystal, that really, have become diamonds in the rough, as you mentioned, for the respective teams. Obviously, Sydney Weiss, 22 points in her debut with LA. Tonight, of course, Whitcomb tying the league record for most made threes and a half and whatnot. Crystal, what does that, I guess, say, obviously, between, some of these, young kids that either were, late first rounders, second rounders, or in Chong's case, a third rounder? I guess, what does that say, though, about, the talent pool that is coming through to the WNBA from the college level this season? And I think, Crystal, too, even into next year as well.
Well, first, it lets you know it doesn't really matter what round it is. It's about which round you come from. I know everybody wants to be either first or second, but I mean, look at Gia Perkins, it's Sanaya Chong. There's a few other third rounds that I'm missing. Like, there's a few third rounders that are proving themselves that they belong in the league and they can stay here. And um, that just lets you know that you have to go deeper sometimes. I mean, sometimes your best player or your first round pick may not be the best pick and may not be the pick you thought it was. I mean, sometimes it's better to kind of just take that risk sometimes. Sanaya Chung was a good risk for Dallas. I mean, she played well. She was very efficient. She she probably didn't take that many shots, but the shots she did take were good. They weren't forced. She passed the ball. She played defense. She single-handedly outplayed Kelsey Plum that game. I can say that for sure. She just looked good out there.
And Marquez, again, we just talked about, these four young kids, that really weren't, big name draft picks. Obviously, bigger names in college either, with Weiss at Oregon State in the Pac-12 3-point record, and obviously Chong playing at UConn and all the success she had there. Again, Marquez, what does, the stellar play of these four young rookies, obviously, four very, very perhaps classified, four underrated or under the radar rookies at least. What does that say, though, about the talent pool that the WNBA produced this year, and again, could produce even as early as next season with more and more studs coming out of college?
All these players continue producing the way they are. That just shows how sleep some people were. I know for me and Crystal, especially, like Crystal can vouch. I've been high on Weiss all year, even back when she was still at Oregon State. Ever since like November, I was like, hey, I feel like we need to pick her. Unfortunately for me and us, it didn't really go that way. But Crystal and I talked about this even during the college season. A lot of it really depends on fit. It's not always who's the most talented. Sometimes it's just simply about who fits well. I feel like Weiss fits like a glove in LA, and the confidence that Fred Williams is showing in Chong down in Dallas is great, considering she's a third round pick. She's been poised, she's been efficient, and Alicia Gray, she has to be one of the favorites for Rookie of the Year, in my opinion. And I think she may very well come away with that award, because she too is one of those poised, confident players that plays hard and she's not afraid. Kayla Davis, a lot of people were down on her, me included, but she's been pretty good too. Hey, look, I'm being
I
real
like your
here. So,
honesty. I like your honesty.
yeah. So, I think a lot of it still just depends on fit, and it really, like Crystal said, it doesn't really matter what round. As long as you go in, know you're confident within yourself, you can do great things. And like I said, case in point, Chong the other night, plus 29. That's a third round pick right there, plus 29. 6 assists. She hit a timely 3. She apparently has a knack for doing that. That really cut the momentum from us and gave it back to them. So, like Crystal said, doesn't matter around. Go in there and just work.
Exactly. That's why the hashtag and slogan is "Watch Me Work," folks. Exactly. Marquez to the Liberty now. Now, obviously, a game they somewhat let get away, but again, this game was neck and neck for the most part. And again, Charles and Rogers dynamic duo, 39 combined points. But again, but sadly, Marquez, it is too little, too late. It looks like for the Liberty in this game between Charles. I mean, she was out there having herself a third quarter, but that still wasn't enough for the Liberty this evening. Marquez, what do you think went wrong for New York in this loss tonight to Seattle? Again, a great game, but what do you think though went wrong though for the Libs in this ball game?
I think some of their players, even though they scored a lot of points, it didn't really come in the most efficient manner. And at some point, if you're hitting threes, like at the clip Seattle was going, someone's not doing their job defensively on the perimeter. There's no way you should be giving up that many threes to the same person over and over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you have to adjust, and I don't think New York did that quickly enough. And I think in terms of the bigger picture, one of the issues for them going forward, especially with the injury to Brittany Boyd, is that point guard position. Prince can do it, but I think they would have preferred someone like a more natural point guard playing that spot. Bria Hartley is a combo guard that they brought in to kind of shore up that spot as well and kind of hit shots from the perimeter, but she hasn't really been that great so far. And I think obviously she's coming off of having a baby, so that's a large part of it. But that's going to be a big issue for them going forward, that point guard spot, and of course that the small forward spot as well. I know that's an issue that they've been really trying to fix, and they really haven't found an answer for that yet. So they too have some things to work on.
Crystal, I think next practice, Bill Lambier is going to go to the whiteboard marker in the locker room at 5:30 in the morning before the team gets there, and he's going to write down 14 and 6 on the whiteboard. And that's a reminder, it's whiteboard material of how many threes they gave up for the game, and how one player single-handedly scored 6 in one half of play. And that's what I think was honestly big talking point, because again that tied franchise records or league records or what have you. Obviously, Crystal, we've talked a lot about Tina Charles, again, and perhaps her endurance and stamina for the season. Of course, we talked about with burnout between her and EDD. And again, I do think that it's good though that Sugar Rogers, or a player, is somewhat there to kind of help take the load off Tina Charles. But now it's going to look like there's going to be more players that will need to have to step up to take the load off both those players. Crystal, in regards to all that, overall thoughts on New York losing this game tonight? And obviously, there is going to be perhaps some whiteboard stuff, either with the threes, or even probably defend the three better will might be on the whiteboard as well. But what do you think though about the Libs loss tonight to Seattle?
Well, looking at the stats, I mean, there was only about three players that actually got into double figures. Everybody else kind of just had little points here and there. And Tina Charles took 25 shots alone. That's a lot of shots, and you can't really have your best player take too many shots like that, because you all see what happens every time they get to the playoffs. They kind of just burn out. She burns out. So I know we've always talked about Tina Charles not having any help, but it seems to be going that way again. I mean, it seems like she has Rogers and Prince, but I feel like she's going to need a little bit more. And like he said, you can't really say anything about Bria Hartley. I mean, she did just have a child. She only played 9 minutes, so your body still has to get right. She probably still has a lot of jiggly pieces in there because of childbirth. So I'm just saying, I mean, your body just be jiggling. But New York ultimately lost that game. They were up and they had it right there. They just kind of put their foot on the brakes. We always talk about teams getting complacent, and I think New York got complacent towards the end, and they just let Seattle come back to them.
Definitely, with that, folks.
To bounce back off that, you guys know that store, New York and Company. Too often, it's Tina Charles and Company, and that just can't happen. She's taking 25 shots, and Prince and Rogers provided some help, but a lot of times that's not always consistent. Some games it'll be Tina and Prince, and then everyone else won't do anything, or it'll be Tina and Rogers and everyone else is off. they can never really seem to have a game where everyone, or at least I wouldn't say everyone, where at least 3 to 4 players have a good, efficient game. It's always Tina taking 30 shots, she makes half, and then the next player has about 15, and that just really can't happen.
No, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like Tina Charles definitely needs some more help. I mean, I don't know if it's she just doesn't fit that system or if they're just not trying enough to put the right pieces around her. But she just definitely she can't do it all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we've already said, I mean, if your best player is taking, 25, 30 shots a game, and again, and it's her, and then one other player and no one else stepping up, that's a cause for concern. And again, obviously, we've talked about, players not in the right spot. And obviously, guys, losing Brittany Boyd just did not help either with New York. Obviously, the Achilles injury done for the season, and that really, I think, gave New York a blow to that guard position. And also, even perhaps, and I believe I saw a couple of tweets out about perhaps Kia Stokes also going out with an injury tonight. It didn't sound too major, but again, if that could be a whole nother sidebar story perhaps to what New York's imminent future could be at this time. But again, folks, to reiterate and revisit the Friday scoreboard this evening, Lynx 82, Sun 68. This evening, Mystics 88, Sky 79, and the Storm 87, and the Liberty 81, all 3 games finals tonight in the WNBA for this Friday evening. With that, guys, there are 5 total games on the weekend schedule, 2 on Saturday and 3 more on Sunday. Starting off, guys, with the Saturday games, and time for our network quick picks. First up, guys, on Saturday, Sparks and Dream at 3 o'clock Pacific time from McCamish Pavilion on the campus of Georgia Tech University down there in hot Atlanta, GA. Crystal, we'll go to you first. Who do you got and why?
Well, I do know LA seems to always struggle in Atlanta. I mean, it's been a known fact. I mean, I know it's different because Angel's not there, but if LA plays any type of lack of defense that they did when they played against Indiana, then Atlanta's definitely going to win. They can't play the way that they did against Indiana against Atlanta. Atlanta's going to be the same way that Indiana did. They're just going to keep running and keep pounding the ball into them. I mean, I do pick LA, but if they lose, it will be because lack of defense, and they'll just stop putting their foot on the gas.
All right, so Marquez, Crystal has Los Angeles winning. How about you and why?
The Sparks. They clearly tapped a talent advantage, but obviously that means nothing if you don't really apply that. But I think
exactly
coming off of a loss, they'll be a little bit more motivated and hungry and plus I just don't really think Atlanta will have an answer, especially if LA plays their game.
Yeah, I'm going with LA too, guys, because I think perhaps that Brian Agler, perhaps that second half in Indiana was probably a wake-up call. Not really a wake-up call, but more so like, okay, this is what we need to work on more. And obviously that loss is obviously a motivating factor for at least a motivating factor in some capacity. I think that LA definitely polishes up their mistakes, and as long as they get that lead and they don't let it get away incrementally, then they'll win this game. So all 3 of us have LA for game 1 of the weekend. Next game, guys, is the Wings and Mercury from Phoenix, Arizona. Marquez, we'll go to you. Who do you got and why?
I'm going to go with Dallas. I know that game before was a little bit close, but I just think Dallas is really riding high right now. They have a lot of confidence and momentum, and you can just tell they believe in themselves. They're playing hard. They're going after it on both ends of the floor, and I think they're going to take advantage of that again and pull out a win somehow against Phoenix. All
right, so KT MA's got the Wings. How about you and why?
I'm going to go with Dallas as well. I do know that they lost one of their best rebounders, Courtney Paris, for 6 to 8 weeks with that knee injury. Mm-hmm. But Phoenix still has they still have trouble rebounding. They also have trouble defensively, especially on the perimeter. If you can beat them out there, then you're pretty much set. But I think Dallas, I mean, they're younger, they play harder, they really want it more, and I think they want to prove everybody wrong who said that they wouldn't be as good as they were this year.
Yeah, I'm going with Dallas for the same exact reasons, guys. Although I do think that perhaps the loss of Courtney Paris may be a minor chink in the armor, but so far, I think the way that Dallas played Phoenix the first game, they really just went out there, out-rebounded, and did the dirty work inside. I really expect that to carry over, and I'm also really anxious to see how Kayla Davis plays again versus Phoenix. And she had a breakout game for her rookie debut against Phoenix, I think. So that would be a really kind of a good encore presentation for that. So all three of us have LA and Dallas for the Saturday games.
And another nugget about Dallas. Hate to like cut you off,
No,
but Dallas still isn't even at full strength.
Exactly.
Ariel Howard still hasn't played yet, so I think they'll be fine. I know Courtney Parrish is a big loss, but I feel like once they gain Powers back, that'll be another explosive piece to add to the offense because of her athleticism and length. So I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, some of these teams still aren't quite at full strength, but once they get there, they're going to be very scary. I agree with that 100%. Guys, now to Sunday. Again, 3 games on the Sunday schedule. First game up, guys. Sun and Sky, a battle of right now lottery bound teams.
Ooh.
Oh, man.
Who's going? Wait, who'd you say?
Crystal, you up. You're up, and who you got?
Child. Ooh, with both of these teams need Jesus. Ooh, they need to be touched by the hands of the Holy Spirit, because, ooh, man.
Who you got and why? Sun or Sky?
I don't know.
Ooh. This is more difficult than it should be. Oh, man. Oh, I want to say Chicago, but my spirit is leading me more towards Connecticut.
Hey, hello. That's where my spirit was hitting.
Yeah, I'm going to say Connecticut because I feel like, I mean, both of these teams are kind of evenly matched, but I think Connecticut, since their playing style, I think they'll be able to go away with the win. Because Chicago, I'm starting to realize that Chicago is not a very good offensive team, and I don't think they can really make that many shots. But with Connecticut, I mean, they seem to get the ball in the basket. They just can't do anything else. So, ooh, child, I'm gonna go with Connecticut barely.
All right, so 1 vote for the Sun to get their first win of the season. MA, how about you?
I agree. I think Connecticut, their playing style can pose some problems for Chicago, especially if Chicago continues to play big. Connecticut can just really get out and run and push, and you have to defend the 3-point line with them. And I just don't think Chicago is going to have enough offensive production to really keep pace if Connecticut's hitting just half or about half of the shots that they take. So I'm going to go with Connecticut.
I'm going to go with the Sun, guys, because it's either going to be tomorrow or when they play San Antonio, but they're probably going to get their first win. It just seems that way so far. And I think as well coming off, and also, here they played, the best team in the league so far with Minnesota, and that has to be 2 confidence boosters. Obviously, tonight's game, maybe not so much, but of course, losing that one game a couple days ago by 2 points. Confidence boost when you play the best team in the whole league so far through the 5-game sample size. So all of us got the Sun in the first game on Sunday. Next game, guys, Fever and Storm in Seattle. Marquez, who you got and
why? I'm going to go with Seattle. Just right off the bat, they're a tough team to play at home. They really seem to be having a lot of people step up for them, whether it's Lloyd or Bird or Wickham tonight. So I just think they're going to be able to build off their win and continue that against the Fever. And plus, I just don't think the Fever will probably have enough offense to keep up either.
Yeah, okay, so 1 vote for Seattle at home. Crystal, how about you?
See, I'm conflicted because I think this game can go either way. I do agree with Marquez, though, that I don't think the Fever have enough offense. I mean, they don't – they're one of those teams that's kind of like they're kind of living through Candace Dupree right now. And anytime a team like that lives through a vet, we kind of know that it can either be a good thing or a bad thing, but it normally ends up being kind of a bad thing, especially later in the season. So because of that, I'm gonna go with Seattle. And plus, they're on a little win streak right now. They're confident. They got their star back. Whitcomb, if she could keep shooting like that, I don't think Indy has a answer for her.
Guys, I'm actually going to go with Indiana on the road in this game, only because I know of how well Seattle's played. And as we've already said, this is going to be a game that may go down to the wire. Because I just don't know if a team can come off of, one very hot shooting night and duplicate that success in the following game after. I mean, we kind of saw this with Los Angeles coming off of 2 wins at home. They go on the road and lose a game. And in regards to Seattle, I mean, I really don't know if any team at any level of basketball can really, come off of such a hot game. Obviously, 14 made threes in the game, 6 in the first half by one player. Can that success carry over? And that I don't know. And I know that the Fever have had their woes and somewhat struggles early in the season, but I think Indy's able to grind out, maybe a 1 point, 2 point final possession. They grind out a win somehow, some way, only because I just don't know if a team can sustain, such, hot shooting after one night at the office. So we'll move on now, guys, to the last game for Sunday. Stars visit Minnesota from Xcel Energy Center. Chris, we'll start with you. Who you got?
Well,
Okay. Well, only because Minnesota, I don't think San Antonio is going to be able to really counter Sylvia Fowles. I know Izzy Harrison has been playing great, but it's one thing. It's a completely different ball game going against Sylvia Fowles. She's strong, she's long, she's intimidating, she's everything that you want your post player to be. So I don't think we'll be able to really answer that. And of course, there's Maya Moore, Simone Augustus. They have a really deep bench, and just quite frankly, they're just a deeper team than us. And it's going to take a near perfect game for San Antonio to come out with a win in that scenario, and I just don't see that happening. So I love my Stars, but I just don't see it happening for them in Minnesota.
All right, Crystal. MA's got the Lynx at home. Who do you got?
San Antonio. No, I'm just kidding. If Guathman was still on the team, I would say San Antonio because, she almost did it for him last year. No, I'm gonna go.
Okay, well, look, if we're gonna do this, ever since Kelly Ferris got waived in Connecticut, they haven't won a game.
You're very right about that. You're right about that.
Stay woke, people.
We figured it out. No, I'm gonna pick Minnesota though. It's just San Antonio. It's so sad to see them struggle. Like I really want to see them do well, especially because they have Mo Jeff and Mo Curry and McBride over there and Izzy Harris. Like you said, she's been playing so well, and it's just so sad to see them start off that slow. But Minnesota's just too strong, especially for a team like San Antonio, who's young and hasn't really figured it out. And that new system that seems to be failing right now. I just don't think right now they could beat a team of Minnesota's caliber.
Yeah, I also have Minnesota too, guys, and this could be one of those trip to the woodshed games in all sadness for San Antonio. But again, this will be a pretty good test though to kind of I know, guys, that last year we talked about, when the Lynx and Sparks were on these historic starts last year, that every team was going to use that game as their measuring stick. How are we? What do we need to improve? And this for the Stars is definitely going to be their first measuring stick game of, how well can we play against a team that is at this point in time very, way better than us at this point in time right now, right here and now, on this date, and what have you. And it's going to be a good test, but I just think that Minnesota, as we've already brought up, guys, has way too many weapons, and obviously the paint presence of Sylvia Fowles inside is going to be a very difficult challenge for the Stars inside. So all three of us have Minnesota at home to end the weekend.
Well,
and again, folks, as a reminder, folks, we will be off air on Monday to observe our Memorial Day holiday. Marquez, what do you got for us?
Well, if I can add one more thing, if there's any type of blueprint for the Stars in this game, I would look no further than the way Dallas played Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And what they really did was they fought hard and they hustled, but not more than that. They just pushed the pace. They pushed every opportunity they got. None of that's something Vicki Johnson wants to do. So if they can get stops, I would expect them to just run it down Minnesota's throat and make them run with us. Now, how long that'll work, that obviously remains to be seen. But if there's anything that I say that they're going to try to do, it's going to be to push and control the tempo and speed this game up and see if Minnesota can keep up.
If they can get stops, though.
And Chris, I was going to come to you at that point because you brought up though too a couple of weeks ago was Minnesota really seems to struggle though with these teams that like to run and gun, and obviously the younger legs obviously overrule or of course have more battery life than the older legs a lot of plenty of times. Crystal, if in fact the Stars can actually get out and run, and pretty much run up and down on Minnesota, could that actually trigger perhaps maybe at this point a pretty big upset perhaps by San Antonio over Minnesota on Sunday?
I think so because yes, they are good defensively, but they're because of their age and speed, they're not a very good transition defense team. So I think if you could get them going on the run, it's going to be hard to stop you. I mean, Sylvia Fowles and Maya Moore may be the only two that can actually catch up with you because they're still in their primes. But as far as everyone else, I mean, if you could get them running and get them tired, I don't think they really have a chance. We seen it with Dallas. Connecticut did it a little bit until they kind of, faltered at the end. But if they can keep them running, then I think they have a chance. But I don't know if San Antonio's defense can hold up. I mean, their defense is so shaky at the point where, I mean, Mo Curry and Mo Jefferson are their best defenders. So, and Izzy Harrison. I don't know if they could just keep that up for the whole game.
Yeah.
Exactly. Crystal, stay with you real quick. Of course, guys, Monday will mark the annual National Day of Remembrance for all of the brave men and women of our armed forces who, of course, took the call of duty to serve their nation and, of course, sacrificed themselves for the very things that we do enjoy to this day. Crystal, of course, your mom, obviously a 25-year or 20-plus year staff sergeant with in our armed forces. Of course, we thank your mom for your service. Crystal, just real quick though, I mean, what does Memorial Day really, I guess, mean to you? Of course, coming from a very obviously with your mom serving, what does Memorial Day really mean for you specifically? Of course, as people probably have thanked your mom plenty of times for what she's done for our nation.
Barbecues. No, I'm just playing. I'm just kidding. I can hear the angry toots now. No, I think it means a lot, especially for simple things like this. Like if they weren't here protecting us, we wouldn't be able to do a show like this right now, or we wouldn't even be able to be where would we want to, or just simple things like that. Both my parents actually are in there, by the way. But yeah, it's just simple stuff. Like we wouldn't be able to just sit outside or talk to friends or just random stuff like that. So I think it's a big big thing. Like I take it pretty seriously.
And of course, Marquez, you living down, somewhere, of course, an area that was ravaged by Hurricane Katrina, perhaps, and maybe other, major hurricanes. And you've seen those first responders, whether they're, a National Guard or even the local naval, Navy or what have you. Marquez, you mind though, what makes Memorial Day, makes it, such a great day to obviously, remember, all of the
I'm sorry.
women that put on their uniforms every day and go out there and serve for their country.
Yeah, well, my cousin actually went to Iraq when I was younger.
I'm doing good.
He's no longer in the military now, but he is a veteran. So he really means a lot to me. So I mean, just taking Memorial Day in perspective, just thank a veteran, or just take the time to remember one, whether they're alive or they have passed away. Just take the time to remember them. If they're alive, give them a thank you, a hug, buy them lunch. Just do something to show some appreciation for what they've done for our country.
Crystal Marquez, the coolest part about my announcing job with the San Diego Gulls is every third period in our first time out, every third period, I get to actually read a card that I'm given of either of some retired or current active duty military member guys, and just hearing the roar of the crowd stand up and give this either wounded warrior or long-serving naval officer or Army veteran, or giving this military member, the love that they deserve, and reading off all these missions they win on and all these awards they've given. It really, even me as a broadcaster, really, even for that matter, makes of course, makes me feel amazing, to see what these what these people go through on a day-to-day basis. I also had two grandparents serve in the military, 12 months staff sergeant with the U.S. Marine Corps as a drill instructor, and also one who was a master chief of the U.S. Navy. So again, folks, if you happen to bump into any veterans on Monday, please, if you can, extend a hand, give a hug, or as Marquez said, buy him coffee, buy him lunch, what have you. And again, really, folks, again, share your gratitude for those brave souls that really have, of course, given us a chance to do what we do here on a daily basis. And again, to all of our fans, followers, and what have you, for all of you that have served in our armed forces, we salute you and we thank you very much for your hard work and dedication and service for our nation and for our country. With that, guys, Marquez, in a nutshell, your final thoughts on tonight's games in the WNBA before we head out of here for a 3-day weekend. What do you got?
A lot of interesting things. Whether it's players stepping up, teams not performing to their expectations early on, I think we're in for a really exciting season.
Definitely in for an exciting season. Crystal, how about you? Again, obviously 3 exciting games tonight. What are your final thoughts on the night's action again before the 3-day weekend?
And it's your current girlfriend? Or?
Crystal, you there?
She in there being messy.
Okay.
Paging Crystal. We'll have to come back to that momentarily. I think as I look over this again, guys, obviously Minnesota, we've talked about many times. Of course, they get off to another hot start. Of course, the Sun, you know, hey, they're looking for ways to improve and hang in ball games so far at this point. Washington, probably not what we expected, but probably right at where they expected. Chicago, rough night scoring the basket, rough night scoring at least so far. And then Seattle, what more can you say? Tying league records and franchise records all in one night. Amazing game for Sam Whitcomb against 6 threes to tie the league record for most threes made in a half. And then with the Liberty, will it be more than just 2 players showing up every night at least for the Liberty at this point in time? Douglas Crystal, are you there? Can you hear us at all?
With it for a while.
We'll take that as a no at this point. But again, folks, quickly to give you your final scores again for the Friday night of action: Lynx 82, 68, Mystics 88, Sky 79, Storm 87, Liberty 81. All those are final scores in tonight's action. And reiterate your weekend schedule of games on Saturday: Sparks at Dream and the Wings at Mercury. All that on Saturday. Then on Sunday, Sun and Sky, Fever and Storm, and the Stars and Lynx. Sunday. And again, no games on Monday. Next game after the night. Next show after the night. We'll be back here on Tuesday evening. With that, folks, for the entire crew here of Crystal Thomas, Marquez Anderson, and yours truly, Kyle McClurg, folks, we invite you to please have a safe night and a safe weekend, folks, and drive home safely. And again, if you happen to hang out with any veterans or any of our active folks, please ensure you give them a high five or what have you. And again, please try your best to extend your gratitude to all of our U.S. Armed Forces coming up on Monday. With that, folks, up until Tuesday, Thomas, Marquez, I'm signing off. We'll see you folks back here on Tuesday night following the Sparks and Liberty game on ESPN. Do take care, folks, and enjoy the weekend. Good night, and bye-bye.